For decades, the galaxy had lived in silence. Human warships, once feared in every corner of known space, had vanished without a trace. Entire star systems whispered stories of Earth's unstoppable fleets, of planets razed in moments, and of warriors who never retreated. Yet over time, those stories had become legends, myths told to frighten children or entertain scholars. Most alien civilizations had convinced themselves that humanity was gone. The humans were a memory, a warning, of what once was but no longer existed. Commander Zev of the Orlani fleet sat alone in the bridge of his flagship, Star Raptor. His sharp eyes scanned the endless star charts displayed before him. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. Years of serving the Orlani Empire had taught him to trust intelligence reports and navigational data, yet something about the void unsettled him. No human signals, none at all, he muttered, almost to himself. They're gone, vanished into nothing. Around him, his officers moved efficiently, preparing for another routine patrol on the edge of Orlani space. The crew were trained, disciplined, and loyal. Still, there was a quiet tension in the air, a lingering unease that Zev could not explain. Humans had once been known as the galaxy's most cunning strategists, their war machines unmatched in speed, strength, and firepower. And now, after decades of silence, the emptiness felt wrong. In the council chambers of Orlani Prime, rumors of the human fleets had faded, replaced by discussions of trade routes, mining operations, and border skirmishes. Humanity, one counselor scoffed. They were a threat long ago. Now, they are nothing. Let us focus on the present, not ghost stories. But others were less certain. Some remembered the human campaigns decades ago, the destruction of fleets that were thought invincible, the speed at which entire planets had been subdued. Their memories were filled with fear and awe, though they dared not admit it openly. Zev's mind wandered back to old reports he had read as a cadet. He remembered reading about the first contact, the first human warship sighted by alien civilizations. It had appeared suddenly, moving faster than anything they had ever known, armed with weapons capable of turning starports into ashes in seconds. Entire fleets had been destroyed before the aliens even realized they were under attack. Those tales had inspired horror in him, even years later. Yet humanity had vanished. No one knew why. Some said Earth had retreated behind impenetrable defenses, hiding their power while they rebuilt in secret. Others whispered of internal conflicts that had destroyed the human fleets from within. Zev could not decide which story was true. Perhaps it did not matter anymore. The humans were gone and the galaxy was free, so it seemed. But the feeling of freedom was fragile. Zev could sense it in the quiet of space, in the emptiness between stars. Something deep in his gut told him that humanity's disappearance was not the end, only a pause. The galaxy had grown complacent, arrogant. Other empires were building their fleets, expanding their territories, and declaring themselves the rulers of star systems humans had once touched. No one had been brave or foolish enough to consider that humans might return. As the Star Raptor moved silently toward the outer systems, Zev could not shake the unease that settled in his chest. He looked at the stars, each one a tiny, distant sun, and wondered what had become of humanity. Were they truly gone? Or were they watching, waiting, and preparing for the day they would return? For decades, the galaxy had forgotten the humans. It had forgotten their war machines, their strategies, and their sheer will to survive. But legends, Zev thought grimly, had a way of coming back to life. And when they did, no one would be ready. The Star Raptor drifted silently near the edge of the Orlani sector, its sensors sweeping the emptiness of space. Commander Zev stared at the data streams, his brow furrowed. For years, the outer systems had been calm, quiet. Nothing stirred in the void. Not ships, not signals, nothing that threatened the Orlani Empire. But today, the calm felt wrong. There was a disturbance in the patterns, something subtle yet undeniable. "Commander," said Dr. Lyra, the ship's xenotech expert, her voice steady but tense, I'm picking up an irregular transmission. It's unlike anything we've seen before. She tapped the console, bringing up a series of waveforms that pulsed rhythmically across the display. It's a coded signal, very advanced. I think it's human. Zev's heart skipped a beat. He tried to force calm, but a cold knot of worry formed in his stomach. Human? That's impossible, he said. His voice sounded hollow, even to himself. They've been gone for decades. Humanity vanished from the galaxy years ago. You must be mistaken. I've triple-checked, Commander, Lyra replied firmly. The energy signatures match archived human technology, their war protocols, even the encryption style. It's exactly like the records we have from centuries ago. She hesitated, then whispered, "They're back." The bridge went quiet. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked shocked, others afraid. A few laughed nervously, trying to dismiss the warning, but Zev could see the truth in Lyra's eyes. She had never been wrong. Humans were not supposed to be here. And yet something had changed. Zev leaned over the console, scanning the transmission more closely. The pattern was complex, almost like a heartbeat. It pulsed steadily, sending tiny shocks through the sensor arrays. Every pulse seemed alive, intelligent, as if the signal itself was aware that it had been detected. He swallowed hard. Prepare the fleet for possible contact. And Lyra, keep analyzing that signal. I want answers before anyone panics. But answers did not come quickly. Hours passed as the Star Raptor traced the signal deeper into uncharted space. It led them to a small, unremarkable star system near the edge of the galaxy. At first glance, it seemed empty. No planets, no asteroid fields, nothing to suggest life or activity. And yet, the signal grew stronger, more insistent, like a heartbeat, echoing in the void. Dr. Lyra studied the readings with growing awe and fear. "It's not just a signal," she said softly. "It's a pattern for movement, for attack formations. It's a battle code. And it's human. They're preparing something big." The weight of her words hit Zev like a hammer. The humans, gone for decades, forgotten by nearly all, were not just alive. They were ready. They had been preparing in secret, building, planning, and waiting for the moment to return. And now, that moment was close. Zev stood silently on the bridge, staring at the empty stars. A mixture of fear and respect filled him. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and brilliant. The galaxy had grown arrogant, believing itself untouchable. And yet, in a single pulse of energy, that arrogance was about to be shattered. He thought of the old legends, of human fleets moving faster than light, of war machines that could level planets, of soldiers who never retreated. Those stories had been dismissed as myths, stories for children to tremble at. But now, Zev realized, myths could awaken. And when they did, the galaxy would never be the same. "Commander," Lyra said, breaking his thoughts, "the signal is moving. They're coming this way. Soon we'll see them." Zev's hands tightened on the console. His voice was calm, but inside he felt a storm of dread. "Alert the fleet," he said. "Tell every ship, humanity is returning. Prepare for war." For decades, the galaxy had thought the humans were gone. Now, in the darkness of space, that belief was about to die. The emptiness of space was shattered by a shimmer of metal beyond the Orlani fleet's sensors. At first, it seemed impossible. A glint in the darkness that grew steadily larger, moving faster than any known vessel. "Commander." Zev leaned forward, disbelief and fear fighting within him. What is that?" he whispered. Dr. Lyra did not answer at once. She stared at the readings, her eyes wide with astonishment. I've never seen anything like this. Energy output, hull design, weapon calibration, it's human, but more advanced, far beyond anything in our archives. From the void emerged a line of titanic war machines, each one larger and sleeker than the last. Their hulls gleamed like polished obsidian, reflecting the light of distant stars. Every ship moved with terrifying precision, as if they were a Single organism. The Orlani sensors struggled to keep up, unable to comprehend the sheer scale of what was approaching. Zev felt a cold sweat run down his back. It can't be. They were gone. For decades. We thought... His words faltered. The fleet was silent, each officer frozen in disbelief. The humans had returned, and they had returned not as scattered remnants but as an unstoppable force. The Orlani warships moved into defensive formations, but it was too late. Humanity's fleet did not hesitate. They advanced with calculated speed, their weapon systems glowing like deadly constellations ready to strike. The first volley of fire erupted across the void, striking an Orlani destroyer. In a heartbeat it was gone, obliterated by energy that could carve through the thickest armor as if it were paper. Alarms blared throughout the Orlani fleet. Crew members scrambled to stations, shouting orders, but the human ships anticipated. Every maneuver, every evasive action, every countermeasure was met with precise, overwhelming force. Entire formations were shredded in moments, leaving nothing but debris drifting in silence. By the ancestors, muttered Admiral Kor, who had fought in many campaigns. It's perfection. They are perfect, faster, strong, smarter than anything we've faced. Fear was etched into every line of his face. He had fought bravest warriors in the galaxy, but nothing had prepared him for this. On board the flagship Titan's Wrath, Captain Elena of the human fleet observed the destruction with calm intensity. Her eyes scanned the holographic battle maps, noting every movement, every reaction. She spoke softly, almost to herself, yet every word carried the weight of command. Do not waste time on fear. Execute precisely, protect one another. Humanity endures, not through caution but through unity and strength. The humans moved as though driven by a single mind, each war machine complementing the other. Energy beams danced across the battlefield, splitting the darkness with brilliant white-blue arcs. Shields flared, weapons fired, and every attack seemed simultaneously defensive and offensive, strategic and devastating. Zev's fleet struggled to respond. Every order he gave was anticipated, every tactic countered before it could be executed. Panic spread through the Orlani ranks. Communications crackled with frantic messages, calls for reinforcements, pleas for retreat. But retreat was impossible. Humanity's war machines were faster, stronger, and smarter than any Orlani vessel. Every move they made, every strategy, was flawless. Zev stood frozen, his mind racing. He thought of the legends, the warnings, and the myths he had dismissed. And now, reality had arrived. Humans were back, not as stories or whispers, but as living, unstoppable forces. And the galaxy would tremble before them. A voice resonated across the void, deep and commanding. It carried through sensors, comms, and space alike. Orlani, you have forgotten why humans are unmatched. Remember this day. The Orlani officers went silent, hearts pounding. That voice was not just a warning, it was a promise. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy had no choice but to witness their might. Zev gripped the console, the fear in his chest turning to ice. Humanity's legends were real, and in this moment he understood. The galaxy had grown arrogant, too confident, and now it would pay. The Titans had returned, and nothing in the stars could stop them. The battlefield stretched across space like a broken tapestry of fire and metal. Orlani fleets were scattered, their ships drifting in pieces as human war machines moved with silent, unyielding purpose. Commander Zev's heart pounded as he watched one of his own carriers disintegrate in a flash of brilliant energy. The screams of crew over comms, the panic and the chaos all collided into a wave of despair he could hardly bear. On board the human flagship Titan's Wrath, Captain Elena observed the destruction with a calm intensity that concealed years of sacrifice. Her eyes, sharp and unflinching, scanned the holographic displays, mapping every Orlani movement, every weakness, every point of vulnerability. She felt no joy in the carnage, only resolve. Humanity had returned not to conquer, but to protect. what remained of their species. Every strike they delivered carried the weight of decades of exile, of planets lost, of wars fought in silence. Beside her, Lieutenant Joran, her second in command, watched the battlefield with a mixture of awe and sorrow. "Captain, it's unlike anything I've ever seen," he murmured. "They're gone, but they fight like legends." His voice trembled. "Do you think we've lost too much?" Elena's hands tightened on the controls. She knew the cost of humanity's absence, the price they had paid in isolation. Entire generations had been raised in secret, learning the art of war, engineering machines that could rival entire civilizations, and enduring the loneliness of waiting for the galaxy to change. Her voice was soft, but every word carried authority. "We have lost much, but we endure. And enduring, that is what makes us strong. Every ship you see, every weapon, every crew member, each one carries the memory of loss. That is why we are unmatched." The human fleet moved as one, almost like a living organism, anticipating every attack, countering every strike before it landed. Orlani commanders shouted orders, trying to regroup, trying to find some advantage. But every tactic was met with precision and force beyond comprehension. Human war machines did not just destroy, they dominated, controlled, and overpowered, without hesitation. In the midst of the battle, Elena caught a glimpse of a young human pilot in one of the smaller fighters. The pilot's hands shook on the controls, fear evident in every movement, yet determination burned in their eyes. Elena felt a pang in her chest. Every human involved had trained in shadows, away from recognition, away from praise. And now, each of them was facing a galaxy that had forgotten them, underestimated them, and dared to ignore their power. Zev, observing from his damaged command ship, could barely comprehend the scale of humanity's return. Every legend he had heard as a young cadet was real, but real in a way that defied understanding. Ships that should have been destroyed survived without a scratch. Weapons that should have failed annihilated entire fleets. And all of it was orchestrated with precision and discipline that no alien intelligence had ever seen. "Sir," one of his officers cried, voice breaking over comms, "the humans, they are everywhere. They are unstoppable." Zev clenched his jaw, swallowing back the terror that threatened to paralyze him. The stories had never captured this. They had never described the fear that came from realizing you are utterly outmatched, watching a force that does not hesitate, a force that will not forgive your arrogance. Humanity's war machines were not just weapons. They were the embodiment of decades of survival, of exile, of determination. Elena spoke again to her fleet, her voice calm, but carrying the weight of the ages. "Remember why we fight. Every world we protect, every life we defend, this is why humanity endures. Let them see our strength and let the galaxy remember who we are." For a moment, silence filled her mind. She thought of the families who had been lost, the homeworlds abandoned, the generations who had grown up knowing only preparation and waiting. Humanity's return was not born from vengeance, not from pride, but from necessity. They had endured, and now they had returned to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. When humans rise, nothing can stop them. Zev looked at the stars, at the shadow of these unstoppable titans, and realized the truth. Humans were not just war machines. They were the spirit of survival, of courage, of relentless determination made flesh. And that spirit was terrifying. The Orlani fleets had tried everything. They had sent messages begging for reinforcements, deployed their fastest warships, and concentrated every weapon they had. But nothing could stop the human fleet. The Titans moved through the void like living storms, obliterating all resistance. Without hesitation, Commander Zev watched helplessly as one of his battle groups was vaporized in seconds, ships torn apart, crews screaming across comms before the line went dead. "Retreat! Fall back to the outer systems," Zev shouted. But, even as the orders left his lips, he knew they would not save them. The humans anticipated every movement, striking with precision that made the Orlani maneuvers seem clumsy and weak. Entire squadrons were decimated before they could even fire a shot. Fear spread like wildfire through the remaining forces, and chaos reigned in every fleet. Above the Orlani homeworld, the final battle began. The planet's orbital defenses flared to life, huge cannons bristling against the incoming human warships. Yet even these massive guns seemed insignificant against the fleet moving toward them. The human ships glowed with energy, their shields shimmering as they advanced, unstoppable and unyielding. Captain Elena stood at the command center of Titan's Wrath, her eyes calm as she surveyed the battlefield. Her crew watched her silently, taking strength from her composure. "Do not fear," she said softly, though every word carried immense authority. "Every move we make is calculated. Every strike is necessary. Remember why we fight. Remember who we are." Human war machines moved like a single organism. Squadrons split and merged, blocking attacks, countering every missile and energy blast and carving a path toward the heart of the Orlani defenses. Even the heaviest Orlani cruisers could not withstand the combined force. Energy beams ripped through hulls, shields shattered, and the sky above the planet became a storm of light and destruction. On the ground, civilians and soldiers alike watched the destruction above them. Cities trembled with every strike. Some wept, others froze in terror, and a few whispered legends to one another, finally realizing the truth. They had never been ready for humanity's return. Zev's fleet had collapsed, but he refused to surrender. "We fight to the last ship," he bellowed over comms. Yet in his heart he knew the truth. Humanity had returned stronger than any empire had dared imagine. They were not just war machines, they were history, memory, and unyielding spirit, made manifest. Elena activated the final weapon, the one reserved for the most dangerous battles, a massive plasma cannon capable of wiping out entire fleets at once. She took a deep breath, her hand steady on the controls. "For every world we have lost, for every human forgotten, let them see the cost of underestimating us." The beam shot across space like a shard of pure light, cutting through the Orlani armada, annihilating cruisers and destroyers in an instant. Shockwaves radiated through the remaining fleets, leaving nothing but silence and debris. Zev's ship shuddered violently. He stared at the screen in disbelief as his once proud forces disintegrated before him. There was no cunning trick, no hidden advantage. Humanity was perfect, unstoppable, and utterly relentless. In that moment, the galaxy understood a truth it had forgotten for decades. Humans did not merely fight, they endured. Every machine, every tactic, every strike was a testament to survival, patience, and unmatched determination. They had vanished to prepare, and now their return was complete. Above the Orlani homeworld, the sky glowed with the light of victory. Human war machines held the battlefield, victorious yet controlled. Captain Elena looked out into the void, silent for a moment. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "The galaxy must remember. Humans are not to be ignored." Zev stared in horror and awe, realizing that the legends he had dismissed were no longer myths. Humanity's return had changed everything, and in the emptiness of space, one undeniable truth shone brighter than any star. Humanity's war machines were unmatched. The galaxy was silent at first. Messages from the outer systems traveled like wildfire through hyperspace, carrying one simple truth. Humanity had returned. Ships that had been thought invincible were reduced to rubble, entire fleets wiped out in hours, and the Orlani homeworld had felt the full force of Earth's war machines. Every civilization, from the largest empires to the smallest colonies, trembled as news spread. In the council halls of the Zenith Confederation, leaders sat frozen. Holographic displays showed the remnants of Orlani fleets shattered by humans. This cannot be real," muttered Chancellor Ryle, his hands trembling as he clutched the edge of his chair. "We studied the legends, but legends are stories. They cannot fight fleets like this." Yet before his eyes the evidence was undeniable. The humans had returned, and they were unmatched. Even distant colonies once at peace found themselves in fear. Children clung to their parents, and teachers hushed classrooms as ships appeared in the sky. People whispered stories their grandparents, had told, now realizing that the myths had been real. Humanity's disappearance had lulled the galaxy into arrogance. Now, that arrogance had been shattered. On board the Titan's Wrath, Captain Elena observed the chaos from orbit. Her expression remained calm, yet deep within her she carried a weight few could understand. She knew the power humanity now wielded, and she also knew the cost. Decades of isolation, generations of preparation, and entire worlds left behind had forged the fleet she commanded. Every human aboard carried the memory of sacrifice, loss, and waiting. Lieutenant Joran stood beside her, eyes scanning reports from across the galaxy. "Captain, they are panicking everywhere. Entire empires are breaking apart." He swallowed hard. "It's terrifying. But it's beautiful too. Humanity is remembered. Humanity is feared." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "Fear is not our goal," she said softly. "We fight because we must survive, and because we protect what is ours. Every action we take, every strike we deliver, it carries the lessons of the past. The galaxy will remember humanity, not for conquest, but for endurance. That is our unmatched strength." Elsewhere, Orlani survivors fled in small ships, carrying reports of annihilation, witnessing firsthand the devastation wrought by humans. Entire fleets vanished in moments, and their leaders could do nothing but watch. Commander Zev had long since lost the ability to issue commands. His fleet was gone, his homeworld vulnerable, and the humans had proven that no empire could stand against them. Yet even in their triumph, the humans did not celebrate. They did not revel in destruction. The Titan's Wrath and its fleet moved with precision and care, ensuring that collateral damage was minimal, that civilians were spared when possible, and that the victories they won were decisive yet controlled. Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as a force that demanded respect and remembrance. Elena looked at the stars, silent for a moment. Memories of Earth, of planets lost, of families and friends left behind weighed on her. "We fight for more than ourselves," she whispered. "We fight for every life that has ever believed in humanity, and for every soul who has waited for our return." And across the galaxy, civilizations learned a lesson they would never forget. Humans had disappeared, yes, but only to return stronger than ever. Their war machines were unmatched, but even more than that, the spirit behind them, the determination, courage, and patience of humanity, was what made them unstoppable. For decades, the galaxy had thought humans were gone. Now, the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity endured, and when they returned, nothing would ever be the same. The battlefield was quiet now. The remnants of the Orlani fleets floated like broken statues in the void, their once proud warships shattered and lifeless. Across the stars, the message had spread. Humanity had returned, and their war machines were unmatched. Entire civilizations trembled as the truth sank in. Captain Elena stood on the bridge of Titan's Wrath, gazing at the aftermath. Her crew moved quietly, maintaining order, repairing damage, and scanning for any remaining threats. Their faces were tired, some marked with soot and sweat, but their eyes held the same unwavering resolve that had brought humanity back from the shadows. Each human aboard carried the memory of decades lost, of planets abandoned, and of families they could not protect, but also the pride of endurance and survival. Lieutenant Joran approached, his expression a mixture of awe and relief. "Captain, they are in shock everywhere. Every empire, every fleet, they have seen our strength. They cannot forget it." Elena nodded, her gaze steady on the distant stars. "They will not forget, and they should not. Humans have returned not to conquer, but to endure. Our legacy is not only in the weapons we wield, but in the spirit that guides us. That is why we are unmatched." Far across the galaxy, leaders who had once dismissed humans as myths reeled from the news. Plans for expansion, trade, and conquest were abandoned. Alliances fractured, and empires that had grown arrogant and cruel now cowered behind defense grids, desperately trying to understand the force that had reemerged. Fear spread faster than light because humanity was no longer just a story. Humanity was a reality, unstoppable and determined. Yet, for all their power, the humans did not celebrate destruction. Cities were spared where possible, survivors rescued, and prisoners treated with a fairness few had ever expected from a species once feared as ruthless. Elena's fleet demonstrated that humanity's strength was not only in war, but in wisdom and restraint. Victory was not measured in devastation alone. It was measured in survival, in justice, and in the reminder that humans, though feared, could be honorable. Commander Zev, the last of the Orlani leaders still able to communicate, looked at his empty command room with disbelief. His fleet had been destroyed, his strategies anticipated, and his world vulnerable. He understood now the truth of the legends he had once doubted. Humans were not only brilliant in war but relentless in their will. He bowed his head in quiet respect. "We underestimated them," he whispered. "We always underestimated them." Elena's voice echoed across the bridge. "Humanity endures because we never forget. Every hardship, every loss, every challenge we faced, these have shaped us. Our machines are unmatched, yes, but it is our spirit, our courage, and our unity that make us unstoppable." As the fleet moved away from the ruins of the Orlani defenses, the stars seemed brighter. They reflected not only the ships gliding through the void, but also the hope and resilience of a species that had survived countless trials. Humanity had vanished for decades, yes, but those years of exile, of preparation, and of silent growth had forged a force that no civilization could ignore. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread among those who survived. Stories of humans returning stronger than ever, of fleets that could strike with unmatched precision, of a species that endured not for conquest, but for the right to live and protect what was theirs. And every civilization, no matter how powerful, knew the same truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Elena looked out at the stars one last time before the fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. "For decades they thought we were gone," she whispered softly. "Now they know. Humanity endures." The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humans had returned, unstoppable and unmatched, not because of weapons alone, but because of the spirit behind them. And in the endless void, one truth shone brighter than any star. Some forces, once awakened, could never be stopped. Humanity had vanished. Humanity had returned. And humanity's legacy would last for all time.